And welcome. Our top focus at this hour, China's President Xi Jinping will arrive in Moscow today for his 3-day visit. He's set to hold talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Reports say that Beijing is attempting to broker peace and put an end to the war in Ukraine. The trip comes just 3 days after the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin of alleged war crimes in Ukraine, including the deportation of Ukrainian children to Russia. The Chinese president will be the first person to meet Putin since the arrest warrant was issued. Neither Moscow nor Beijing are members of the ICC.
Well, it'll be, I would say, a serious reputational blow to President Xi. Obviously meeting with someone who is now a pariah, effectively a criminal in the eyes of the civilized world. And of course, China still depends on its commercial relations with the West, especially Western Europe, where the court is located. But on the other hand, Xi is an ideological leader. And I suspect that in this case, ideology, the ideological affiliations and the alignments of his interests with those of Putin, that is distracting the West and keeping the West involved in a theater that's away from Taiwan, away from East Asia, might actually play better for.
Ahead of Jinping's visit, John Kirby, the White House National Security Council spokesperson, issued a statement. He accused China and Russia of chafing against the international rules-based order that the United States and its allies had set up after the end of the Second World War.
If, coming out of this meeting, there's some sort of call for a ceasefire, well, that's just going to be unacceptable, because all that's going to do, Mike, is ratify Russia's conquest to date. All that's going to do is give Mr. Putin more time to refit, retrain, reman, and try to plan for renewed offensives at a time of his choosing. We hope, and we've said this before, that President Xi will call and talk to President Zelensky, because we believe the Chinese need to get the Ukrainian perspective.
China is trying to achieve several different things with this trip, and it will be a tough balance. They do want to affirm the strategic partnership with the Russian Federation to show that America's attempts to split the relationship and make the relationship costly for China will not work. They want to show the developing world that they can play a constructive role. They want to avoid economic and reputational costs in Europe, so I think that they will be careful about how far they go in terms of signaling new support for Russia so that they're not seen as an enabler.
The two leaders are set to have lunch together today and have informal talks. The Kremlin had confirmed that official dialogue between the presidents and officials of both countries will take place on Tuesday. The Kremlin spokesperson further confirmed that statements will also be given to the media after the meetings. The Russian president said Russia is grateful for China's balanced line in connection with the events taking place in Ukraine, for understanding their background and true causes. He further said Russia welcomed China's willingness to play a constructive role in resolving the crises. Last month, China published a 12-point plan for a political resolution of the Ukraine crisis. Last week as well, a senior Chinese diplomat also called for negotiations while talking to Ukraine's foreign minister. Xi Jinping is expected to be a crucial mediator in the invasion of Ukraine. This is the first visit by the Chinese president since the invasion began in February last year. Incidentally, this is also Xi Jinping's first foreign visit since he was handed unprecedented third term as president of China. Beijing has emphasized its concerns over the relentless year-long conflict between Russia and Ukraine. However, there is no confirmation yet on whether the Chinese president will hold talks with the Ukrainian president. And for more on this, we are now being joined by Andrew K.P. Long, who is an international and independent China analyst. Andrew, welcome to WION. What impact will this visit by the Chinese president to Moscow have in the long run, and how significant is it?
Well, it is significant, very significant in two ways. Firstly, it comes at a time when the Ukraine war is coming to a kind of stalemate, as it were. And both the Ukrainians and Russia are really getting a little bit tired of this war, together with the rest of the world. And in fact, the European, some of the European countries, and even the United States, because the United States is also facing an internal problem of a financial turmoil with the failing of banks and high inflation. Is a kind of a vicious a kind of interactive kind of spiral. For inflation is very high, so they've got increased interest rates. If you increase the interest rate, the banks cannot. Some of the banks is facing a lot of problems, and so I think that Ukraine and United States and Russia would like to have at least a rethink about how this war can be brought to an amicable or even a more acceptable, at least another phase to some of the countries. So that's one important dimension. The other important dimension is, of course, President Xi has secured his unprecedented third term. And of course, even before the war in Ukraine, both Russia and China already declare a relationship without limits. This is because both countries are highly interdependent economically, because Russia is the world's largest, one of the world's largest exporter of energy and agricultural products, and China is the world's largest customer. So the two countries are also pushed together because both countries are being made the arch enemy of the world hegemon, the United States. Now, unfortunately, the United States is at present embroiled in a kind of a rhetoric, just sort of trying to blacken, of course, China and blacken Russia, and also instigating this kind of international criminal court. And just showed in that both Russia and, of course, Saudi Arabia and China are not part of the International Criminal Court, nor, for that matter, is the United States. The United States never joined the International Criminal Court. Otherwise, all these actions in the Middle East, causing a lot of wars, and this could well be a cause for international approbation. So I think that this is a false rhetoric. But I think that the visit is likely to be significant because China has come up with a 12-point plan, whereby that the war could well be brought to another more stable phase. And the interesting thing is that even Zelensky himself has expressed an interest to meet with President Xi.
All right, Andrew, I'm just curious. There are reports that China may supply Russia with lethal weapons. With that in mind, do you think China is really interested in ending the war in Ukraine?
China, of course, doesn't want a war. China's strength is not the military. China's strength is trade, international trade, and international connectivity. China is the heart of the global and supply and value chain, which has been hugely disrupted by this war. But China is unlikely to give up this kind of a close relationship with Russia, because, as I said, even before the war, both countries were brought together because the economies are complementary. And I think that the biggest difference is that and it's also part of the Chinese philosophy, everything is not just black and white, because you can be different, but you can achieve a more applicable relationship. It's kind of harmony despite differences. But to the West, it's either black or white, you're either with me or against me. This kind of simplistic interpretation of the world, I think, doesn't wash with the reality. For example, both Russia and China are branded as authoritarian, as a kind of dictatorial regime, as if their people are not happy. But just now, only about a couple of days ago, the IP SO organization based in Paris, looking at the happiness index around the world of something like 32 countries around the world, and the Chinese people's happiness index is on top. So, and along with Saudi Arabia, for that matter. You know, these are not democratic countries, but it doesn't mean that the country is not governed well and the people are not happy. So this kind of dynamic and narrative, false narrative, just between black and white, authoritarian against democracies, is totally false. Because even a lot of so-called democratic countries, that people are not truly happy. There's a lot of inequality and all sort of a dispute within their internal. So I think that that's what China's bringing to the table.
Andrew K.P. Long is an international and independent China analyst. Andrew, thank you for giving us time today and for talking to WION World is One.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.